Almost all the stories about deep change are stories of change and crisis. So two stories, change that's trivial and change that's traumatic. Right? Deep change, almost always a crisis, almost always takes a new leader to turn the organization around. Lou Gerstner comes in and turns IBM around. Carlos Ghosn turns Nissan around. Here's Alan Mulally at Ford turning that company around. Rosemary Bravo rescued Burberry's. On and on it goes. But a turnaround is a poor excuse for timely transformation. And in fact, if I didn't know better, I would actually believe that all these smart executives who talk a lot about change, and yet who only seem to be able to change in the middle of crisis, if I didn't know better, I'd believe that they had been out benchmarking, how change works in a place like Zimbabwe, right? Because that's how our organizations change, like a poorly governed third world dictatorship, where the pressures mount and mount and mount. Finally, there's a crisis. You depose the leader. And the more successful you've been as an organization, typically the bigger shock is required. You go back to the 1990s. You look at IBM, took a $14 billion swing in earnings for them to say, maybe we need to be a little bit less of a product company and a lot more of a services company. And so we have to change the way we change in dramatic kinds of ways. Because right now the way we change is just too expensive. Deep change is exactly how it happens in a poorly governed country. It is infrequent, it is belated, and it is convulsive. Certainly we can do better than this. Here, whatever the industry, the reality is whatever industry you're in, we are no longer in the knowledge economy. We are now in the creative economy, and that's going to require some huge changes in how we think. There's a project right now underway at IBM to think about how do you apply Taylorist principles to knowledge work. How do you decompose knowledge work into standard units? How do you describe somebody's skills in a kind of a standard way so I can match working people kind of fluidly around the world, hand off tasks from one country to another country with no loss of efficiency? And one of the folks leading that project said this. He said, in any company, there are a lot of jobs that are commodities. Now, I think that's true, but I also think it's enormously regrettable. Right? I would hope that in your company there's not a single job that's a commodity job, because that means it's not really creating any kind of true differentiated value. And the way you get rid of commodity jobs, the way you get rid of those things is not by outsourcing or offshoring. The way you get rid of them is by dramatically increasing the creative potential and capabilities of your own people. I think organizations, we've often made a mistake because we assume that commodity jobs are filled with commodity people. That uninspiring jobs must mean uninspired people. And the problem is that as we routinized work over the last 100 years, we routinized people as well, and we forgot the fact that they're still human beings with enormous creative potential. So that's the question. How do we increase the creative content of every single job by unleashing the creative capacity of every single individual? And to do that, we're going to have to turn our management assumptions upside down. Ask them, how have you been trained as a business innovator? We haven't done it. I know of only a couple of companies that have trained literally every single employee to be a business innovator. It's no good putting up some kind of electronic suggestion box if you haven't given people the conceptual skills to innovate. Or you can ask them, as a frontline employee, do you have access to all of our innovation insights from all across the company? What we know about customers and marketing, what we know about competitors in our competitor analysis unit, what we know about technology out of R&D, what we know about what's changing in the regulatory environment. Does every employee have access to anything that could help them across the company to think in a different way? Or if I'm that frontline employee and I want to experiment with a new idea, how long does it take me to get 20% of my time or 50%? A couple of $1,000s to run an experiment? Buy some outside help? How many layers of bureaucracy do I go through? And I can tell you, if it takes somebody more than a week to get those permissions lined up, you're not serious about innovation. Or you could ask, is innovation performance really measured for every single employee? Do you know who's innovating in your company and who's not? So by these standards, when you ask folks these questions, it reveals almost instantly that we still haven't really built this as a capability. We're going to have to do that. And again, it's going to require a radical change in management.